was 6 years ago tonight that Kwame Kilpatrick was promising a political comeback when he finished second place in the primary race for mayor. Tonight, he's out of prison and hoping for an entirely different kind of comeback, but it's going to be an uphill battle. Just after 6 o'clock this morning, Detroit's former mayor walked out of prison. After bear hugs with his brother-in-law, Kwame Kilpatrick made his way to a waiting Cadillac Escalade, once his stylish vehicle of choice when he ran the city.
He was a model prisoner. He didn't have any misconduct. He played by the rules in prison, and we expect that on parole as well.
As Action News followed the Escalade down I-94, it appeared that Kilpatrick's driver tried to ditch reporters who were in close pursuit. Kilpatrick's return to the city limits started with a stop at federal court in downtown Detroit around 7:30 a.m. Inside the courthouse with his attorney Jim Thomas, Kilpatrick met with pretrial services. Even though Kilpatrick is on parole for his state felony conviction, he's also on bond for his federal indictment on racketeering, extortion, fraud, and tax charges. This is the first time Kilpatrick has been out of custody since he was arraigned on the federal charges, so he had to check in with pretrial services at the courthouse to review his bond conditions. Inside, Kilpatrick had to fill out this form disclosing his address in Texas and other information to the court. Court officials say the former mayor will have to check in once a month with a new pretrial services officer in Dallas until he goes to trial in September of 2012. Kilpatrick will also be closely supervised for his state conviction by a new parole officer with the Texas Department of Corrections. He must check in with her within 24 hours of arriving in the Lone Star State. Texas corrections officials tell the Action News investigators that Kilpatrick will be treated like every other parolee. He'll have to do random drug and alcohol testing. He won't be able to travel without a travel pass from his parole supervisor, and he can't have any contact with other felons without permission. It's not clear yet whether Kilpatrick will be allowed to communicate with his longtime friend and co-defendant in the federal case, Bobby Ferguson, who's a convicted felon. However, Department of Corrections officials did allow a Kilpatrick relative who's also a convicted felon to meet the former mayor in Jackson. In a statement, corrections officials said, quote, "While it is technically a violation and the parole board didn't give him permission, we granted it on site for this specific circumstance when Mr. Ferguson arrived in place of Kilpatrick's sister, who was originally scheduled to pick him up. We are not considering his contact with his brother-in-law, Daniel Ferguson, to be an issue at this time." Also attention getting today, Kilpatrick's choice of leaving in a high-profile Escalade after the former mayor assured the parole board he had changed his ways.
He mentioned that he's changed his lifestyle and he's not living in the same type of house that he was in, not driving the same kind of cars he had before. And he said this was all part of a commitment to focus on paying this restitution.
And there is a lot of restitution to pay, more than $860,000. We have learned it was Dan Haji, one of Kilpatrick's attorneys, who hired that Escalade and driver. We also saw Kilpatrick make a stop at the Athenaeum Hotel in Greektown this morning, although it's not clear why he was there or who he was meeting with.